Well, give me some dirt on Pat. I need something to use against him at SEMA.
Well, I've been trying to catch him in the act recently. My recent game is I wish I'm recording more often because I've caught him several times saying he likes forced induction and EFI.
Oh
And
no.
I'm like, we were doing a show one time. He says, man, you know what we need to do? I hate to say it. We should put a turbo on this. And I was like, did anybody catch that? Did anybody record
Oh,
that?
wow.
Because although, and again, we're very similar because a lot of people, and, I'm sure it plays into it that I'm a younger guy, he's an older guy. So he's the carb guy and I'm
And
the
fuel
EFI
injection.
guy.
Yeah.
And really, for both of us, we don't care as long as it works. Because at the end of the day, if they're both right, they'll do exactly what you want them to. So we actually usually don't have any discrepancies on which we would prefer.
That doesn't surprise me. I haven't been able to find any dirt on him at all. He's just a really nice guy. Hey, Dave Smith here with the Fact 5 podcast, and it is called Solid Car Guys. I'm with a very solid car guy, Frankie Forman from RTM Productions. Frankie, welcome here. We were talking to your partner in crime, Pat Topolinski, and you've got some hellacious experience with engine power, and I want to talk to you about your background, but welcome, man. You spent 3 days here playing around with cars. You have a good time?
Oh my gosh, man. It was awesome. Thank you for having us. I've never actually been here, so this was an absolute treat.
That's right, because Pat's been here before, but you haven't.
Yes, yeah. So obviously he's been here building some cars and stuff. But when they said we were coming back here, I was thrilled because obviously we've seen your cars at SEMA. We talked to you a ton at SEMA and stuff, but just to come here and actually see behind the scenes, see the work you guys put in is killer.
It's one of those things that you can't do it on the phone. You can't do it, even the Zoom calls and all that. You started RTM around right when COVID came out, right? 2020, 2021. When did you start up? 2020.
Yeah. So 2020, right as COVID hit. Yeah.
That must have been tough because here you are starting out with a new job and all of a sudden everybody's wearing masks and everything. And what was the background and how did you get, let's start at the beginning because there's so much to talk about. Your background is actually, I'm kind of excited because, Pat and myself and a lot of guys my age, we kind of started out on the old Volkswagen that the neighbor gave you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a car being delivered on a transport and there was a VW Bug in front of it. And the transport driver was trying to back this Bug off, but it was an automatic stick shift. And the clutch wasn't engaging. It was like, gink, gink, gink. And I'm probably one of the only guys in Rhode Island that knows exactly what's wrong with that Bug because I had that same stupid electric shift.
Yep.
And I go over to the guy and said, pull up the shift boot. There's a wire there that's probably frayed and broken. And yep, it was. Twisted together and ran just great. So, we kind of cut our teeth on really crappy cars over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Right? You came up, you went to Ohio Northwestern. Ohio.
University of Northwestern Ohio. Yes, correct.
All right, and you were doing, what got you into, because you were in their engine program, and tell me about your high school years, your first car, and how you got to that school, which really led you to RTM, right?
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
Yeah, it's I would say I have a different story than definitely like what I would consider like the old school story. Like you were talking about. I think nowadays it's a little more common because people are more exposed to car culture with social media and things like that. So my story is a little more common now, but like growing up, had nothing to do with cars. Both my parents, my mom and dad, are both master plumbers. That's what I did growing up. I mean, I was running service calls at 13, 14.
So you were sweat soldering pipes before, did they even do that back then?
Yep. No, they still do it today. Yeah.
Plumber,
so, I mean, I was backfilling ditches at 10 or 11 or whatever, and so I had a different upbringing than I guess you would say most car guys did. Now we worked on if we had to fix a truck or whatever, it was fix it because we don't want to pay somebody to do it. So that's I had some stuff there.
But you grew up in out east,
Maryland. Yeah.
Okay, so Maryland. You went to Ohio. When did your first haiku with cars and engines?
Yeah.
When did that start?
So I guess it'd be like around 13, 14. We used to go to cruising Ocean City and Ocean
City.
Huge.
Right? That's a massive
huge show, right? Yeah. And we didn't really go for the show, but somehow it overlapped, and that was just like a totally different experience for me because like we would go down to the Burger King, get a milkshake, whatever, and watch the cars just go up and down the strip, and that I think kind of like started to kick it off for me. Obviously, Smokey and the Bandit and stuff. Those old school movies were awesome and helped a little bit too. And so I just kind of grew this thing, and I was like, originally before that, it was always going to be plumbing. Like that was my plan. That was the goal.
Your career path.
Take over the company business. My grandfather did it. My dad did it. That was kind of like what I thought it was going to be. And then I got this bug, and I started like, man, I like cars. I'm like, do I want to do this? And it just kind of grew and grew until I realized, I'm like, yeah, I want to do something in the automotive world, right? So at this is pretty common, but they offered a vocational college as part of like the county or whatever. So I went and went to the open house, and I was gonna do the automotive program, but I actually went to the diesel program because when I toured it, I talked to the instructor. I just felt like that was I just felt like it was a richer program. Like I felt like I was going to get more out of it. And I was still so new that I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go yet. So I actually went through the diesel vocational program
And what
there.
years was this? This is at
Gosh,
Northwestern Ohio.
this was in high school,
Oh, in high
actually. This
school.
was high school.
Diesel
So
program in high school.
yeah, so this would have been 2016, I think,
Yep.
junior in high school.
Yep.
So I went through the diesel program there, bought my first car, which was a 1979 Firebird, Smoking the Bandit too. So
All
that
right.
was, I bought, it was this
The
crappy
402,
one.
the Oldsmobile 402. What was engine
Nope,
was it?
no. This was a crappy canary yellow V6
Oh no!
Buick
All right,
3.8.
all right. Humble beginnings.
Yeah, we were driving through town one day, was sitting in somebody's yard and totally overpaid for it, but I wanted that car, and
Yep.
I had worked and saved up money for years for stuff like that, and I was like, I want that car, and there was a ton of stuff wrong with it. Didn't care, bought it and then worked on it. I bought it before or even had a license. My mom drove it back for me, started working on it, and ended up building a 355 for it, a small block Chevy to swap it and stuff. But so I went through this
Perfect.
diesel
Perfect.
program, and got to give a huge credit to Ed Stevens, who ran the program. He was a huge mentor for me and really helped me, just helped me with not only the knowledge base, but just growing that passion, and so I also did a collision, half of a collision program there. So paint and body work, stuff like that. Kind of got into that a little bit, but as I was there, I realized I kind of wanted to switch. I wanted to go automotive. I wanted to go high performance, build engines, go racing, that kind of stuff. And a UNOH rep had come to the school several times, and talking with him, I kind of had narrowed in where I wanted to do something of that sort, probably at UNOH, but I didn't really want to pay for it. I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't want to have to take out student loans. I didn't want to pay for it. So I kind of used that diesel path to do that. So I competed in Skills USA, which was like a hands-on vocational challenge. And I got first at regional,
You were a
first at
standout in
state.
that. I read about on the UNOH is bragging about you on their websites.
Yeah.
They're kind of proud of you.
Yeah, so I ended up getting third at nationals, which helped with a ton of scholarship money. UNOH also has a great program for scholarship where they do written tests at their open houses. So they have one for diesel.
You
one
must
for
have a
all this
good
stuff.
aptitude with engines, though, because when we were driving, you're like, I've always loved engines. And it's
Yeah.
just something about an air pump. It's just something efficient about it. It's beautiful.
It's the precision of it. I love. I mean, everyone has faulted for me this for my entire life, but I'm extremely logical. It is right or wrong. It is black and white. Data is exactly what I go off of. So engines obviously leans me right towards that because there's
machining
no
tolerances, exact
yeah,
precision.
everything has a tolerance, everything has a specification, everything is either right or it's wrong, and it's one of the two ways. And so I was kind of always that way growing up, and it just fed right into that. So I love the precision of engines. I love the fact that you can start with something that is, if you're starting from scratch, it's a hunk of metal, but everything does exactly what you tell it to. It's a hunk of metal, and you can make it do what you want if you do it correctly. If you do it wrong, it's going to be wrong. It's exactly what you put into it. So
it's funny because everybody talks about environmentalism and efficiency, and a great race motor is a highly efficient race motor, an efficient design. A race car is a very efficient design. It's actually it's a kind of environmental. If you think about using the most amount of getting the most amount of energy out of a certain amount of carbon, engines do that. A well-tuned, well-built engine. So how did you get from college? Because you had to stand out in those competitions. And how did you get to RTM? Because that was a leap, and a lot of guys. I mean, there's 100 guys right now saying, "How did he do it? How did he do it?" Because they want your job,
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say it was hard work, and some of it was, but most of it, I guess, was probably just came down to luck, which a lot of those things it seems like fate at the time or luck or whatever. But I was on the motorsports team when I was at UNOH, so they have a student-run dirt track motorsports team that races, builds, and runs cars at the local dirt track. They race at Florida and stuff like that. So I built engines on the team for the cars while I was there. Another huge mentor was Paul Higgins, head coach of the team. So I had him as an instructor, and he was
with the students driving, kind of like Formula SAE, just dirt track equivalent.
Yeah, they drive the cars, build the engines. The only thing they don't do is drive the haulers. That's kind of the fun line there. Is they do everything, clean the bathrooms, sweep the floors. Doesn't matter. They do it all except for drive the cars to the track and the haulers. But So I graduated actually because of COVID. The school shut down in 2020, March of 2020. School shut down because of COVID. I graduated and I was working at a body shop the entire time I was in school. So I was working part time there, going to class at night from like 6:30 to 12:30 or 6:30 to 11:30, and then I'd work at the body shop in the morning. So when the school shut down, nobody was racing because my plan was graduate, get into racing, and go. Well, nobody was racing. Absolutely nobody's doing anything. I mean, there's stories of all these race shops going out of business and all these race teams that are doing these side jobs because nobody was actually doing anything. So I started working at the body shop full time and just kind of biding my time there. And it was like, man, because it's going to be like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't know if this is going to go away. And I was at the body shop working one day, and Paul Higgins calls me. He says, hey, you're going to get a call from Franklin, Tennessee. You need to answer it. And I was like, what are you talking about? What is it? And he says, I can't tell you, but it's a job offer. So make sure you answer. I was like, okay. So I get a call from John Kurtz, who is the executive producer. He was back then.
I have an
too.
excellent story about Kurtz that, again, I don't know
Yeah.
if I can tell it on the air. It's awesome.
I don't know, but amazing guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
Kurt's a great guy. A
one
little
of my
cranky
favorite
sometimes.
people.
Harley guy. Yeah.
One of my favorite people
Yeah.
ever. But calls me up. He says, "Hey, we have this job offer. Have you ever heard of Engine Power, Power Nation, Power Block?" And I said, "Yeah, I've seen seen some of the show and stuff." And he's like, would you be interested in coming down as a host on Engine Power? And I said, I don't know. I mean, what does the job entail? And we went through all that kind of stuff. He said, I'd love to bring you down to show you around and have you do a screen test. And I sent in a little video of me talking.
Where were you
or
living at the
whatever.
time?
I was living in Lima,
okay.
Ohio.
Yep,
So,
Ohio.
and I knew at that point I did not want to live in Lima, Ohio.
Yeah.
The school, I love the school, and I mean, probably if I wanted to, I'd go work there, but the area is too cold for me. That's the only problem. Like last year I was there, we were
try northern Michigan with Pat. That's kind of cold.
No, yeah. Now last year I was there, we were loading cars to go to Florida. We're loading cars into the hauler. It's -20 with -40 wind chill.
Midwest.
Nothing's working.
Yeah.
I'm freezing. And we're out there. I'm laying under these semis because everything's leaking, and we're loading cars.
Meanwhile, Tennessee, they had we were down doing a show in Tennessee, and they had a 1/4 inch of snow, and the whole town shuts down for 3 days.
Yeah,
Snowmageddon.
it's insane.
There's no food.
I
think people died. Yeah,
yeah. They're like, if you watch the weather in Tennessee, if any kind of cold weather event comes, they are like, buy everything from the stores. The world's going to shut down, But
so you interviewed with John Kurtz, and
so,
not to miss the detail here, Frankie's talking about, well, I didn't really work that hard. He's working at a body shop, going to school full time. Yeah, he worked really hard. Thomas Edison, one of those famous guys, said, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
It's not all luck. Underneath that luck is a substrate of really hard work, and that's got to be. And that was what Pat was telling us. All of us have worked really hard. Sometimes you get lucky and you get to do what you love to do, like what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's always built on that foundation of hard work.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines is, hard work opens up opportunity. So the harder you work, the more opportunity will be available. But,
well, you've been working hard here. You've been 3 days standing around doing everything, and we worked on the cars and built a really cool car. But how did your experience? You started RTM during COVID.
Yeah. So
go from COVID to here.
Yeah. So I came down to the screen test, whatever. And at that point, RTM had kind of gone through the whole most of the COVID phase. They're still social distancing, but all of like the shutdown stuff had kind of passed. So did a screen test, interviewed, and at first I was a little on the fence actually, but talking to Pat and talking to some of the other guys there kind of brought me around. I think Pat is one of the key reasons that I worked there. I think if it had been someone, we have a very similar mindset, which is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. Like we are very, very similar, which is great because that's one of the key reasons that I decided, this is, because I wanted to go racing. So it's like, do I want to do this? But talking with him and realizing that how we were going to get along and stuff, I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity and I can't pass this up. Would I love to go racing? Yes, but this is the opportunity of a lifetime and I'm not going to be stupid and turn it down, So from there, it just kind of, took off. We started doing shows, and first 6 months obviously if you go watch any of the first 6 months I was there, all the guys, all the producers and stuff give me heck for it because it is rough. Like we watched the first show and I was like, man, I look weird. Like it's hard to see yourself on camera, but also you just got to get used to it. Like I had talked in front of crowds and things like that, but looking at a little glass box, and trying to focus on that and talk to it, it's different. You got to get used to it and loosen up and stuff. But I mean, I've been there 4 years now. It's been great.
What annoys you about it now? Did Pat help you with that on-screen stuff?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. It just takes time, and so obviously, Pat and the producer and stuff were very patient and things like that
Yeah.
because it's you and sometimes you got to get used to going a little over the top. I always tell when people come in, I'm like, it's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel extremely weird, like you're way more excited and exuberant than you are, but the camera kind of tones that down. So you kind of have to go over the top for things like that.
This is weird. I maybe we had a similar experience. I was working in Southern California for a medical company, and at lunch we're playing basketball and always screwing off, and I'm always joking around, and they were doing a video and they needed a voiceover for a certain medical description of a medical device, right?
Hmm.
And I'm like, hell, I could do that. I could do. And we're
Yeah.
just crying, doing voices like, I found out your middle name is Richard,
Hmm.
right? Richard is a fantastic middle name. So it's
Yeah.
like Frankie Richard Foreman. Yeah, it's we were screwing around. And I go in this box, put some headphones on, light goes on. I'm I totally choke.
Yeah.
After like 10 seconds of struggling,
Oh my gosh.
the guy comes on and says, yeah, we're good. We don't need any help. And I'm like, I suck.
Yeah.
When that light comes on, when you're in
It's
front of a
different.
camera,
Yeah.
it's totally different. And then you get used to it and it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. But you had to
Yeah.
go through that adjustment. Did Pat help at all?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just one of those, it's a patient, a little bit of
Make
coaching
fun of
and
you?
things like that.
Yeah.
Making fun of it, loosen you up and things
All right,
like
what's the
that,
most
so
annoying thing about Topolinsky? I mean, he's got a Polish last name. I married a Lewandowski, so I know how it goes. But well, give me some dirt on Pat. I need something to use against him at SEMA.
Well, I've been trying to catch him in the act recently. My recent game is I wish I'm recording more often because I've caught him several times saying he likes forced induction and EFI.
Oh no!
And I'm like, we were doing a show one time. He says, "Man," he says, "you know what we need to do? I hate to say it, we should put a turbo on this." And I was like, "Did anybody catch that? Did anybody record that?"
Wow.
Because although and again, we're very similar because a lot of people, and I'm sure it plays into it that I'm a younger guy, he's an older guy, so he's the carb guy, and I'm the
Fuel
EFI
injection.
guy.
Yeah.
And really, for both of us, we don't care as long as it works. Because at the end of the day, if they're both right, they'll do exactly what you want them to. So we actually usually don't have any discrepancies on which we would prefer.
That doesn't surprise me. I haven't been able to find any
application.
dirt on him at all. He's
Yeah.
just a really nice guy. It sucks. I was hoping to
Yeah.
find something I can make fun of him in SEMA, but you're working with Pat. Go back in time. Was it your Firebird? Was your first car?
Yes, yeah, 79
A V6 Firebird.
Esprit or whatever, however you
Yeah,
say it.
Esprit.
Esprit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Esprit.
yeah. That was
Yeah, so
a
that was
sackless car. Yeah.
It was, but
Yeah.
it made it like 30,000 miles before it blew a head gasket.
What did the thing make? Like 110 horsepower or something?
Gosh, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Who knows? I never chassis down it or anything.
So
when it
you already
stopped.
have the box. With every cool car guy, you have to have one car that you're embarrassed. Do you still love that car? It was your
Oh
first,
my gosh, yeah. I
Yeah.
would. Now, see, I lost a bunch of money on that car. That was a great learning experience. I look back
Yeah.
and I don't regret it because it was a great learning experience. But I had way too much money in that car, as you do as a
Of
car
course,
guy.
yeah.
And I sold it for pennies of what I had into it and things like that. But I would love to have another one. Prices have obviously gone up in the last 10
All right,
years.
so
or whatever,
a great one of the things that I've learned is I think great car guys have that one car that they're embarrassed to admit they like. They don't want to tell them, among mixed company.
Mhm.
And for me, I loved in college. I had an old Fiat X19,
Okay, yeah.
and it had for all the wrong reasons. But I put 150,000 miles on it. Never broke down. It broke a lot, but never broke down.
Never left you stranded. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just and it was always trying. It had like 78 horsepower.
Yeah.
And the Italians missed the memo. They were going to do an offset crash testing in the early 70s.
Yeah.
And the Italians built this chassis to do like a 60-mile offset, right?
Mhm.
So the chassis was so stout, the car would do really well in like autocrossing, SCCA,
Mhm.
but it was just a crappy little car. But I love it,
Yeah.
and I'm, fine. I like Fiat X19s, okay? I've had like 8
Got
of
that
them.
on camera.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One time I bought one. I'm like 3 beers in Saturday night. I bought one
Yeah.
on eBay, and I'm like, I'll just bid. And then the bidding expired. And I'm like, you just won this crappy
You're
X19
like, "What
in
did I
Florida,
do?"
right?
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
back, dropped off in my driveway like a week later, and my wife's looking at me like, what, again with you? But so I do. Yeah. Nicole knows. I've had
Yeah.
like 6 of them, and I can't. If I find a good one, I'm like, I saw one on Bring a Trailer. They're getting stupid money now. But all right, back to you. So you got basically a 78 Esprit Firebird V6,
Yep.
barely making 100 horse,
Yeah.
and you dropped a ton of money into it.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I mean,
humiliating. Good
I
for you,
mean-
man. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't regret it, but I would say, yeah, it's probably a little humiliating.
No, you gotta
if
own
you
it,
knew how
man.
much money
Yeah.
was in it. Yeah, I mean, how much I bought the car for, and then how much I put in it, and how much I sold it for. That's kind of embarrassing. But I learned a ton on that car. It did exactly what I wanted it to. Got 23 miles a gallon and stuff driving across Ohio. So
All right, but
it was
here's
my
another
daily.
question.
So
You're surrounded by all these projects. I go into your studio and
yeah,
there's
yeah,
15 cars in the back. Are
yeah.
you allowed to steal any of them out the back? Can you buy any of them for a discount rate? Do you have your eye on anyone in the
Um,
back there?
Sometimes in a rare occasion they will. So we'll keep cars for years. Like after we finish them, because they'll go to shows or whatever and content things like that. On rare occasions, we will have the opportunity to buy one. If someone else doesn't really jump on it or whatever, they'll come back and say, "Hey, we're looking at selling this. Are you interested?" And I currently do not have my eyes on any, and I don't think any are really for sale. Um, However, Pat had the awesome opportunity to buy the Granada that we built on the show. So we built a sleeper Granada,
Yep.
347. It
That's like
makes
every car guy's dream is the crappy sleeper
Oh,
car.
in this
Yeah.
car, in my opinion, in our opinion, we did this car to a T as a sleeper. I mean, did not cut the car up. We bought this beautiful 62,000 mile original 77 Granada.
A Ford Granada.
Perfect car. I mean, no rust, no nothing. Drove 302 C4 car. Pulled the engine out, built a 347, disguised it to look like the stock engine. I mean, it
Yep.
looks
Yep.
exactly before and after. Cannot tell the difference, but it's got Jessel 1.6 rockers on it. It's got
Some Nitto tires on or something. What did
nope.
you go with tires?
So we wanted to keep the hubcaps. So we ran
Oh,
14-inch Cokers and BFGs. Shaved the rear calipers to run 14s because we
yep.
didn't want to run 15 and lose the hubcaps. And we even got a set. We got a second set of wheels and tires, put slicks on. So we're running slicks with pop on hubcaps on this
Yep.
thing. So from the outside, the car looks exactly the same, but it makes on. We did end up putting nitrous on it just to kind of hit that elusive 500 wheel horsepower number or whatever. But one spray with the exhaust open, it makes 537 at the wheel. And if you close
In a
the exhaust,
70s Granada.
yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
you close the exhaust, and it kills 120 out of it naturally aspirated because it goes dual 3-inch into a single 3-inch, and then cat and two mufflers. So the car driving around is insanely quiet, and it's got cutouts so you can open it up and
But you come back to
keep the
life. Every
strobe.
time you come back to engines, your eyes get brighter. I mean, if you
Yeah,
in the engine wars right now, there is such a spread from the Dodge motors and the GM motors. I mean, the new Z06 Corvette. I
yeah.
mean,
Oh
you've
my
got
gosh.
1,000 horsepower. You've got the
Yeah,
horsepower wars are insane.
yeah.
Of all those engines, and I know you can't pick favorites because you have a lot of sponsors, a lot of engines you work with. But which of the engines today, the modern engines that are for sale right now, crate engines, really kind of turn your eye?
That's an interesting question because see, we're not super brand loyal. I'm not super brand loyal because
I'm
we
just
care.
speaking off the cuff. Like, what do
Yeah.
you like personally? What really kind of for me, my brother has a 331 Dodge Hemi in the
Yeah.
garage in Michigan, and it's been rusty for 40 years, hasn't been worked on. It's got
Mhm.
dual quads and
Yeah.
heads this wide. It's all cast iron. It's got to weigh 800 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And there's some romance to that engine, like are the modern engines? I feel like they've lost some of their romance, but God, they're making power. They're unbelievable
Yeah.
across the board. I don't think there's a bad one in the bunch. We have the
No.
392 Hemi in one of our hot rods. Great
Nope.
motor. It runs a little hot, but that's the way it's designed to run,
Yeah, I mean, the modern technology has come so far that I mean, even I'm young. I'm not old. I was born in 1999, so I kind of did grow up with a lot of this, but like it is even to me it is insane the power level that you can get from a factory engine, the warranty it comes with. I mean, you have
Absolutely. Yeah.
Z06 1,000 horsepower, whatever. You have 750 horse Mustangs, things like that, and they come with a factory warranty. And it's like even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that's insane. So, I mean, if I had to pick one, I don't know. I mean, I we always say for a street engine, you get the build the biggest engine you can. So I'm really excited. Like I know we've kind of beat a dead horse here with the Godzilla, but I am really excited to see what. I mean, the engine's only 4 years old, and there's a ton of stuff available. So I'm excited to see what comes of that in the next couple of years for development, as far as heads and things like that. Because it's a large engine, it's a large cylinder case. So I mean, already you can make them
And
511
we
inches.
were talking
So
about the bottom end.
yeah,
Ford has kind of closed the gap. The LS junkyard engines were always mythic. You could put,
yep,
600 horsepower on them.
yeah,
Like Ford's really closed the gap. The modular motors, the cranks, the
yep,
the piston connecting rods, that hot rod Coyote motor. You're saying the internals are really stout and can go
yeah,
1,000 horsepower.
yeah, and I
You
mean.
put a boost on it, put a supercharger, twin
Yeah,
turbo, something like
and
that.
Godzilla as well. I mean, there's guys a couple years ago making 1,000 on stock bottom end Godzillas. The cranks are Ford has an amazing crank setup for all, since the Coyote, they've done a great job with their cranks. So the cranks and those things, unless you're going over 1500, you don't even have to touch them really. And it's crazy because like a Coyote crank costs like $400 and it's
Yeah.
good to 1500 horse, and that's a factory piece. So, and this Godzilla, there's people making 1,000 with them, stock bottom ends. But now, I mean, you put a rod and piston in that thing, and it'll live forever at that power level, So
We had a customer put I think it was a Coyote motor twin turbo in a XTF pickup truck,
oh yeah,
and he had
wow,
1,200 horsepower,
oh
1,200,
yeah,
and it really twisted his drive shaft. Had to change that.
yeah,
Did a lot of consequential damages down the road,
yeah.
but
You got to do all the stuff that
yeah.
backs it up, but
Down the road,
yeah.
next, if you were to describe what you'd be doing 10 years from now, 10 years, it's way off in the distance. Describe a day in your life 10 years from now. What you're driving, what you're working on, what you're doing for a living,
Man,
kind of.
I mean, ideally, I guess I'd still have this job. This is working at Power Nation has been an amazing opportunity. I love love this job. I always tell people I'm like I've had real jobs and this is not one of them. Because it's like working at Disneyland. So I mean, I would love to work there as long as
Matt, I didn't tell him to say that, man. That's all organic.
no, that's all organic. No, I'm gonna work there as long as they let me. Eventually, I'm sure I'll get too old and they'll be like, we need somebody younger, But no, you're good. They'll keep you. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, ideal. I mean, it'd be great to be still working there, and if not, I mean, I'd love to get into racing. It's just as obviously as life goes on,
That was
things
kind of
become
where you
harder and
were in
harder.
college. You were doing that, and
Yeah, I
and
mean,
now you're doing kind of both.
yeah, I mean, always heart kind of always goes back to racing, and so that'd be a great opportunity as well, and I'd appreciate either. No matter what I was doing, is if it's something to do with engines, that's what I love. So as long as it ties into that, I'll be good.
I love what you say because I remember in the 70s, now it was in the 80s, I think the Evolution engine with Harley, they were going
Yeah, the
to
Evo,
fuel
yeah,
injection, right?
yeah,
And the Harley purists were like, if it's not a carburetor with an air cleaner, it's not a Harley, right?
yeah,
And they had to convince these guys that fuel injection wasn't that bad. And the ad just simply said, hey, if it squirts gas into a combustion chamber, it can't be that bad.
yeah,
And that was their bridge, right?
yep,
And the truth is that, you're kind of someone I like to kind of hold up as an ideal. You get a lot of younger generation kids, and maybe they had that hand-me-down Honda Accord. Maybe it wasn't the Hemi Duster that we had in high school or whatever.
yeah,
But the bottom line is they're different engines, they're different parts that are available, different hand-me-down cars. But in that next generation is the same passion and stoke. And
yeah,
you love engines, and everything we talked about when you were here the last 3 days is about engines and drivetrain and engines.
yeah.
And that's really cool, man. You're inspiring. You're inspiring for a lot of young kids.
Well,
And
I mean, I mean, it's something. That's what I wanted to do, So that's and it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't matter. I mean, and that could be a good thing or bad thing because, some people are really, really passionate about certain brands or certain things, and that's great because that passion drives them. And I'm just passionate about all engines. I don't care what it is. You could be like, here's this 4-cylinder Honda with a big turbo, and
I
I'll
think
say
you're
that's awesome,
you're in the
So
golden era of engine. I don't think engine technology has ever been better. And
no, oh
before we
gosh,
go,
no.
let me just pick your brain because this is kind of one of those controversial subjects. I was never a big, battery electric vehicle. We did one of the first
Mm,
custom electric. We were working with SolidWorks Software, great company. We still use all their software. Hewlett Packard sponsored us. We were working with a company called A123 Systems, big battery
gotcha.
company. They did a lot of cordless stuff for I don't know if it was DeWalt or Makita, but they
Okay,
were
yeah.
huge in there. And they wanted to leverage that over into vehicle systems and vehicle dynamics.
Mm,
And A123 made this modular battery pack. We put it in a hot rod, a 33 hot rod in 2010. We took this car to the SolidWorks Nationals. They have like a once a year conference, right? And we drove the hot rod out onto stage. And I was interviewed on stage with Jeremy Lucchini, one of their project managers.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
were kind of like the warm up band
Hmm.
for James Cameron,
Okay,
who's,
yeah,
Mr. Titanic and Deep Sea
yeah.
Explorer and all the TV producer and movie producer. And I was like ready to hear this guy, like, okay, another, Hollywood type. He's going to be a, kind of a, he wasn't. He was fascinating. The guy's brilliant. And I
Hmm.
sat for 30, 40 minutes listening to him talk. But the point is, we did this electric hot rod.
Hmm.
And at the time, the controllers weren't real good. So it was kind of like, and didn't really
Yeah,
drive. Well, we took it to the track and it was kind of, it was almost impossible to drive.
yeah.
But since then, they've come a long way. And then Kevin Bird, one of your cohorts at Brenton,
Hmm.
he's doing Two Guys Garage. And he
Yeah.
did, Kevin grew up in the V10 Ford engine development. Now he's doing all BEV stuff. So everybody's got their own opinion.
Yeah.
Mine is a little bit more kind of, I think BEVs have a place, I don't think the whole world's going to be electric in 10 years. The volumes just don't show it. I also, there's some real problems and challenges of EVs that haven't really fully exposed themselves yet. And it's just a matter of, we've been making, internal combustion engines for 120 years, right? And so
Yeah.
we have some real good seat time with them, and we're still learning and we're still refining. And those motors, they've been better.
Yeah.
What's your idea and your opinions on EVs versus gas motors and traditional internal combustion engines, ICE motors?
Yeah, I think it's actually probably gonna be pretty similar to yours because I mean everybody has their opinions and stuff, but in my opinion, I think they have their place and they're very interesting and they're very cool. And I think as an alternative technology, it's very it's a cool and growing sector. But I think as far as widespread infrastructure, it's just really not there yet, and the technology hasn't been there yet. Now there's advances being made like every day, and I just saw some new stuff last week about some new battery technology that's supposed to revolutionize the game. Um, but I think with there's some other technology that's coming up like hydrogen internal combustion engines, and
I'm a
that
huge fan of hydrogen power. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
then I think that honestly is probably going to be where it goes if we're trying to move off fossil fuels. I think that's probably going to be the uh, more the way that everything goes. Now, there's also a ton to be said, like you're talking about, for internal combustion engines becoming more efficient. I mean, they've done leaps and bounds in the last 10 years, let alone
Oh God,
what
yeah,
we
the
can do in the
efficiency.
next 10, So making a current engine more efficient, in my mind, is probably going to be a little bit better because no matter what, you have energy transfer going on with an EV. Even if you had all the infrastructure, all the chargers, which currently we're not really set up for, we don't produce enough power for, but if you still have energy transfer, and every time you transfer energy, there's power loss. You're going to lose through heat, through
And electric is
everything like that.
particularly susceptible to that.
Yes. So.
Art Totten, this friend of mine who passed away, is an older guy, big Ford guy. I mean, you cut him, he does
Hmm.
indeed bleed Ford blue. Loved Ford
Yeah.
trucks. I get great stories about Art Totten, and every time I ever use the word motor, you mean engine.
Yeah.
Motor's an electric motor.
Yeah. We do the
So,
same
so
thing.
right
Yeah.
now, if I'm listening to you, there's really no risk of engine power becoming motor power anytime soon. The EV stuff we're
No.
more enthusiasts and we're more on the hobbyist side. And
Yeah.
so we're gas motor guys. That's what we do. I don't think
Yep.
the EVs for us have a ton of applications other than some guy
No.
wants to do it, he can do
Yeah.
it. It's just we're not providing a lot of
Yeah.
the infrastructure to do that. We're not giving the motor mounts and all the kits and all that.
No, and I think the great analogy that I've heard is it's like horses. Horses used to be used for transportation and everything. Now they're not. Does nobody have horses? No, they're a hobbyist thing, and that's kind of always been our
And
sector,
Nicole, here
anyways.
we're just talking
So
about horses. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. If you want to lose a little bit of money,
Oh yeah.
just go racing. You want to lose a lot of money, buy a horse.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had horses growing up. I
There
know
you
the
go.
pain. Yeah,
Yep.
so but yeah, so that's it, it's a hobbyist. I feel like even at the minimum, it will be a hobbyist deal. It's not going to fade out completely. It will just be a smaller sector, which is fine as long as we're able to keep it alive, and continue doing what we're doing.
Moneyball, I was telling you that great line. I've used it before. It's hard not to be romantic about baseball was a
Yeah.
Brad Pitt line in
Yep.
Moneyball. I like to steal that line and say it's hard not to be romantic about cars. And the BEV stuff, we've got Bill Cardoza and Scorpion Motors doing EV conversions on Cobras,
Hmm.
and the performance is unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
I don't have that same romantic, when I smell race gas, I mean, I tear up. I mean,
Yeah.
it reminds you of being on the track, and I haven't been at the track. COVID just took us way off the rails.
Hmm.
And we're now, with the new cars that we're working on, we're going to get back to the track and do some more testing. And we've got 2 cars in Trans Am, so I'm looking forward to racing. But
Yeah.
man, when you smell race gas,
It's a different.
it's hard
Yeah.
to be romantic about an EV right now. I'm not. Maybe down the road
Yeah.
I will be, but
And some people have different opinions. Some people don't care about the smell and the noise, and they love that instant torque and they love that performance, which is no, don't get me wrong, it's cool. But I
yeah.
think for what got us into cars, me and you, and a lot of people, it's the sound, it's the smell, it's the feel, it's when you mash that pedal and you hear it come to life and stuff, and that EVs just won't really
It
replace
smells
that.
a huge part of it. I got a
Yeah.
68 van, and every time I get in it, that
Yeah.
air, oil cooled, just kind of smell,
Yep. Yeah,
oil
man.
burning vinyl,
Yeah.
VW smell. Um, Listen, Frankie, thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah,
We had
man.
a lot of
Thank you.
fun building the car with you, and
Oh yeah.
we'll see you at SEMA.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
you know, uh, I said about your partner Pat. He's a solid car guy. So are you. You're representing for a whole new generation. We're excited to have you here. So on behalf of Frankie, myself, Factory 5, everybody here, solid car guys out. We do have the episode of Power Nation that we're working on right now. I mean, let's see, end of September. I think it airs November 28th, was it?
25th?
25th,
Yeah.
November
So
25th.
Yep.
So this
and then
episode.
it'll hit YouTube, very soon after that. So
All right. So
keep an eye
Power
on 'em.
Nation, November 25th, Frankie and Pat Toplinsky, and you guys are going to be putting together an all new Factory 5, a prototype that no one knows what it is yet.
Nope.
So cool. Thanks for coming out here, and for everybody at Factory 5, Solid Car Guys, Dave Smith out. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Lindsay, and thanks for checking out this episode of Solid Car Guys. This podcast is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The opinions shared by the hosts, guests, and participants are their own and do not reflect the views of Factory 5 Racing or any affiliated companies. The content is not professional advice, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. Neither Factory 5 Racing, the host, nor the guests are responsible for any loss, injury, or damages. Always seek professional advice for vehicle builds, safety, and regulations. Racing and modifications carry inherent risks. On behalf of Factory 5 Racing, build and drive responsibly.